Hey everybody, it's Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com here in San Diego, California. So for all things Vespa, whether you got a vintage Vespa that shifts or a modern Vespa, a very old modern Vespa, such as this ET4, we got you covered on ScooterWest.com. So today I'm just going to cover an intro of how I'm going to resurrect this scooter. And you ask, why would you resurrect something like this? Well, it's been sitting without use for about 15 years now. Even a scooter that has a carburetor, if it sits for more than 6 months, sometimes you'll have problems. You know, these scooters, you got to exercise them, keep them running, keep the fuel flowing through the carburetor, keep that battery charged. But it was kind of forgotten for about 15 years and was just in the corner of a garage. So I'm going to go over every step in separate different videos of everything I'm going to do to repair the scooter to bring it all the way up to a level of finish where I feel it's safe for the road. So first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about this scooter. This is a Euro spec Vespa ET4 125. And if you look at my prior videos, you search for robots, Euro spec 1997 Vespa ET4. It's a silver ET4 that I own in my own personal collection. I talk about pretty much an identical bike to this. I think this one's a 96 or a 97 model year from Europe. In Pontedera, they had a big celebration for the 50th anniversary for Vespa, and the ET4 model was introduced at that celebration in 1996 for the 50 year of Vespa. So kind of an interesting color. It may not be the most popular color for today, kind of like a rose color. People either love it or they might hate it. I don't have much opinion about it. But I'll tell you about this scooter. I got this scooter over 20 years ago and shipped it over here. And I had a lot of scooters back then. I still have kind of a number of scooters. It had an engine problem. And I think it was ridden real heavily. It had like 10,000 kilometers on it, about 6,000 miles, but it was ridden on the highways that go between Euro Vespa. I don't remember what the whole story was, but it was used for like a trek across Portugal or something like that. But the motor lost power and it ended up being a valve spring that failed. Everyone don't see valve springs fail, so I think it was just a one-off occurrence. So this is the first ET4 that I rebuilt. It was in the United States. Probably the first ET4 engine that was rebuilt in the United States. I didn't really have any need for it. I gave it to an old coworker. This is way before I worked at a Vespa shop. She put like, I don't know, 13,000 kilometers on it, just riding around locally. And then it sat for over 15 years. She gave it back to me, and now I'm just fixing up for my friend Walter's girlfriend, Bridget. She wanted a scooter, just something to start on. It's got some dings and scratches. It's kind of got an interesting ding in the front where it hit an animal at one point. But pretty much it needs quite a bit of TLC to get it back to operational state. So definitely the first thing when a scooter's been sitting, especially one with a carburetor like this, is you got to clean the carburetor. I'm not going to clean the carburetor on video for this one. Actually, I already cleaned the carburetor. And you can watch my video. It's got like over 100,000 views. It's the Vespa comprehensive carburetor cleaning on a GT200. It pretty much covers how to clean the carburetor of any modern Vespa with a 4-stroke carburetor. And it carries over to most motorcycle carburetors in general, but it's very comprehensive, very long. I think it turned into an hour-long video, but voila, I already cleaned the carburetor. It looks kind of shiny, almost new. Jets are all cleaned, and it's ready to pretty much just put back into the bike. I'll show you another problem that I ran into when I pulled the carburetor. This is very typical of an older scooter. Keep in mind, even the officially imported Vespa ET4 150s, they're coming on over 20 years old at this point. So you're gonna have parts, especially rubber parts, deteriorate, you know, whether it's hoses, gaskets, that kind of stuff. I'll bring this up to the camera and show you what's going on with the intake manifold. These intake manifolds are a combination of aluminum with an overmolded rubber to isolate the rubber, the carburetor, some of the vibration and the heat from the engine from the carburetor. So you can see on the lower position is the original intake manifold, and it's got cracks all over the place. And if you move it, you can see they open up, and those will cause air leaks. So the scooter will have difficulty starting and certainly won't idle very well. Well, fortunately, you still get an intake manifold brand new. We sell tons of these intake manifolds for, you know, the ET4 150 with the liter motor, which is the motor that was always sold here in North America, and the same with the LX. Typically, I would say the typical lifespan of a part like this is more like 10 years, just being rubber, and depending on how much it's exposed to the elements and the heat. So, got to keep that in mind. A lot of times they have a gasket that also seals it to the engine. The fuel injected scooters, such as a GTS 250, also has an intake manifold, and they don't have a gasket like this older style one. It's got this rubber ring that seals up, and the rubber ring on this one's completely hard and compressed, so it probably doesn't seal up all that well anyways. You know, take the hose clamp off it and pretty much install this new intake manifold, put the carburetor on there. And the next step I'm going to do is, obviously I threw away the battery or recycled it. We're going to put a brand new battery in it. And before I go any further, even clean a carburetor on an old scooter that's unknown, I want to make sure it has a spark. This scooter does have an immobilizer system. Sometimes old electronics could have issues, so I want to make sure it detects the key and has spark. So, you know, two things you need for an engine at minimum to run, plus a lot of other stuff, is you need fuel and spark. So, you know, a carburetor that's working, that's delivering fuel to the correct proportions, and a spark that's sparking at the right time. And that's kind of just the rule of thumb for any technician taking in a motor vehicle with a gas engine that's not running. You check for those two things first. So let's get the battery in it and we'll check for spark. That will be my next video. But I want to show some of the other issues you can encounter, and I will also have videos on them as well. Well, the tires, you can see they have quite a bit of tread on them, but they are ancient. The stems are cracked. Those tires are like 18 or 19 years old. You can look at the date code on the tire. The first two digits is typically a week, so it could be, you know, 01 would be first week of the year, 52 would be the last week of the year, and the last two digits is your year. And obviously that cycles over, so it may be like, if it said 99, you know, that means the tire was probably made in 1999. You know, if it says 06, well, it was made in 2006. And a good rule of thumb, if the tires are over 10 years old, just replace them. Also inspect them for cracks. So we're not going to do that first, because it's kind of silly to replace the tires if we have major issues like spark, or, you know, scooter that's old, it may be even hard to get the ignition components. I'm pretty confident the carburetor would be fine. We're also going to need to flush out the fuel tank, replace the fuel tap, the fuel line. You know, those are all rubber parts, or they have rubber parts internally like the fuel tap. So along with bolting in the carburetor, which will replace the fuel tap, put a new fuel tap on there. The air filters are typically a foam element, and they completely rot away, sometimes after 5 or 6 years. So you just, if you're going to get going, an old scooter hasn't been running, just get a new air filter. You can get the premium Piaggio ones that are already pre-oiled, only cost like $2 or $3 more. Got a new high quality battery. These were the non-sealed style batteries that you got to fill with acid. Not the best, but that's what these old ET4s used. All the North American market ET4s used a much better YTX 12 BS sealed battery, much better battery, but I'll just put what was originally in this scooter. So let's move on to some of the other issues. Obviously, you want to check to make sure the motor has oil. That's bad news. If you have horrible looking oil in the motor, you might have a motor that has low compression, or maybe you have a motor that's been sitting out in the weather. It may have got moisture into the top end and rusted the cylinder. You'd have a lot of problems there. So a lot of stuff to look out for. You may want to do a compression check once you know the starter motor's working with a battery in it. So that's something to keep in mind. Check for compression. I'm pretty certain it will have compression. It's been stored in a dry garage for the most part. But there's a major issue, and I find this with all older Vespas. The grease that they use in the fork bearings is, deteriorates after about 20 years. I mean, this scooter's over 20 years old, and you can see there's some resistance. Even when I'm moving it, this should be really smooth. It's real crunchy. It's kind of got a crunchy, like detent notch feel. That would be really, really miserable to ride with. Also, if I lift the front tire, I spin it, you can feel the grease in the wheel bearings doesn't feel all that hot. Another problem is the brakes. The rear brake works, it's completely mechanical, so there's not much to fail other than a cable or broken lever. Well, the front brakes, being disc brakes, are a superior style braking technology, but they do have brake fluid that deteriorates, over the years. Being 15, 20-year-old brake fluid, well, that lever just goes right to the grip. Looked at it, it's really, really dark, so we'll try flushing the brake fluid. And you still got to be careful. Sometimes if you have a clogged master cylinder, that can be a real dangerous situation. Sometimes when the brake components are so deteriorated, you may be just better off, in the interest of safety, replacing your master cylinder and also the caliper and possibly the brake line. This model used a rubber line on it. So the later Vespas use a Teflon and a stainless steel braided line. Those kind of have a very long lifetime. Something to keep in mind. We're certainly not going to ride it without a front brake. Kind of not really the best idea, but that's pretty much the different steps I'm going to do. So in my next video, I'm going to pop the battery in. We're going to check for spark, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So look out for the next video. Again, look for the comprehensive carburetor cleaning on a Vespa if you want to learn how to clean the carburetor, because that's something you're definitely going to need to do. And look on the Vespa Motorsport YouTube channel, and if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. Helps us out, and you'll see other exciting videos. I'm putting out videos every week, a couple of them usually. And we'll have a playlist for all the videos pertaining to this ET4 and everything I need to do to get it from the state where it's been sitting for 15 years to where it's roadworthy. So look out for those future videos, and it will be a playlist. You can go one by one, or you can just watch the ones that are interesting to you. Maybe you have a fork that's crunchy. I'll have a separate video dropping the fork. I have a separate video of doing the brakes and getting it running. So thanks for watching. Hope you find that interesting, and look out for those future videos. This is a Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. See you on the next one.